Hey, I'm Harry, one of the most famous gingers in esports, and you're watching Thorin's YouTube channel, home of the most famous ginger in esports.
Donk might actually just be the best. So I won't say Gamersubs is as good as Donk. But then again, Donk isn't an energy formula. And you can't get 10% off Donk or everything on the Gamersubs website using the code Thorin. So why not try Gamersubs instead? Here's a nice flavour, Pom Pom Punch. It's based on pomegranates. Surprisingly nice, really, isn't it? And I'm not talking about some occult secret like the Garden of Pomegranates by Israel Regardie, deep cut there. Get everything you want off the Gamersubs website, 10% off, Thorin. You know the name. It's in the game or something, whatever. I stole EA Sports. Please don't sue me, EA Sports. That was just a loving homage to you. Now, funnily enough, speaking of copying things, obviously, Kyousuke, who I'm just going to call him that because he's Russian and he doesn't speak Japanese, and even though he seems to like Asian names, like even his name Seaman Bakken is like some sort of Chinese saying, meaning like honourable and intelligent or something like that. I'm just going to say Kyousuke. It's what everyone's already said anyway, and it's just one of those names that's stuck in your brain now. So this player has been insanely hyped. The last player as hyped as him was Donk, who, by the way, was technically the most hyped player ever. Literally ever. Like, even Monacy wasn't hyped like that. Zimu wasn't hyped like that. Everyone thought Simple cheated early on is the joke. So I don't think anyone's ever been as hyped. The Rops wasn't hyped as this. Probably the most hyped player ever, considering he hasn't played one map of Tier 1 CS. At least Donk, remember, when 2024 began and he went mental, he had already played that bet boom at the end of the last year, where he'd been like beating up on Virtus Pro and like real fucking teams and players that you know. This is an example of a player where on paper, it's impossible to live up to the hype. And so I did actually want, before I did this video, to dive into some of the POVs and watch for myself. And quite frankly, I've actually got some good news. If anyone, listen, I don't think there'll ever be another Donk. I think I was right to say Donk can't be that good because we've never seen anyone like Donk, literally ever. He is the best rookie to ever play any version of Counter-Strike. Or maybe any FPS game, although certainly the Coolers of the world, the Cyphers of the world can make their arguments there. I actually do think this is also one of the most bonkers players I have actually seen. Like, this is already, is what he's done at this lower level. It is extremely good. His face, it looks fucking nuts. The stats are obviously crazy, but that's the thing. Stats have been misleading in the past. I think this is going to be a really interesting one. So let's get into all the different angles, shall we? So first of all, you've got to ask yourself the classic question on the Thorin roster move, which is, should the team that let him go, if you kick or let them go, should they have let him go? No. The answer to that is no. Because right now, I actually do think Spirit lacks a little bit of firepower, and get ready. Firepower contained in an aggressive player who's one of the first one or two into the site. Yes, you have Donk. Sure, you can use people like Chopper to sort of just be in weird positions to help with him going, etc. You can use all the utility and all the boot camping and Halley, and then you can have like trade frags from Shiro when he's back. Here's the difference. It actually does look like these two players could have played together. It looks to me like, I mean, Donk is just the best primary entry, secondary. He's just the best full stop on the T side. But you look at Kiosuke or Kyousuke, I already did it there, didn't I? I actually do think he does look a little bit more like a Nico. Like, to me, this sort of a player, it's not Yukindar. Yukindar was used as just like, you had to just go in first like Donk. I think this is more like Exertion, Axile. That's even more the sort of trajectory of Prime Axile, obviously. That's the sort of trajectory I'm looking more towards. He's not the just press W and go in and shoot people in the head. He even has a very different playing style, as we'll get to. So I think it's insanity to let him go in the sense that this does look like the player you needed actually in your team. It does look like the one you wanted in your team to give you that extra oomph, and you would have been so nuts on T side. And by the way, he's extremely strong fragging on CT side too. Also, by the way, has a really good deagle, so you can imagine this could have made you a team that could do low buys a lot better. I think it's a mistake technically to let him go. Unless you know something we don't know, which at this point in time, the eye test just checks out too well. I don't think you do, unless it's like he's got a bad attitude or whatever. And by the way, Falcons will take that. They're going to be a Real Madrid type project on Yankees. What's it? Give us a fuck what you think about each other. Shut the fuck up, put the jersey on, take a massive bag of money, and now fucking shoot people in the server before I kick your ass out and put you in contract prison, where I still pay you an enormous amount. Simple. Dry your eyes with some $100 bills, mate. So The problem here, obviously, is they suggest it's his choice. And if he wanted to go anywhere, and I don't know how long his contract was, but the buyout is insane. And then someone's actually said, oh, yeah, your terms are acceptable. Here's millions and millions of dollars for an unproven tier 1 player. Well, at that point, yeah, you probably have to also sell. It's funny, everyone loves to congratulate Heroic for selling players for millions, not replacing them with equally as good players, and then not having as good results in the server. They go, what a brilliantly won org. The purpose of the CS team is to fucking win CS trophies and actual matches, you dunces. Like, look, Falcons is going the other way. They only care about the trophies. But Spirit is actually not as rich as people think. Like, this is a squad where, yeah, if it was like, if they could get Monacy, assuming there's a world where you'd want to play for them, yeah, maybe they could break the bank and get the people who have all the cash there to spend. But if you can get millions for this guy now, you do it. Now, I will say, I would have put like a cheeky buyback thing in 2 years or something, like we pay, you know, like 20% more and we get to buy him back in 2 years. Something like that, maybe, just so you have the option. But I do think in doing so, you're giving away a chance to be number one, for Donk to be number one in the world and to win another major and to win the era and stuff. So, I mean, you saw this last major. How did it work out, that whole theory of like, hey, we won a major with Josh last time, so you can't say we are doing wrong. Oh, you are all talking shit on us. Well, Donk played about as good as you can play. And how did it fucking go? Yeah, you didn't even sniff the final. And you wouldn't have, by the way. Vitality would have fucking dumpstered you, even if you'd have gotten past Mouse choking their tits off on map 1. So in terms of that, I do think it is a mistake to let this guy go. If you look at the success of the Spirit team, if you look at the organisation, since he hasn't proven it yet, it's not the end of the world. I do think it's not like letting Donk go. It's more comparable to letting Monacy go, but even then, I think even scaled up, you're letting him go for a lot more, even relative to our era, than Monacy for like 600k or whatever. So I do think it's fine to sell him in that sense. It's just sad because I actually think Falcons now will just outplay Spirit in most of the fucking events and have better fragging, and this guy will tear them up when he plays them, and Donk will be better, but it won't fucking matter because they have Donk, Nico, and fucking Monacy. Good luck with that. That could literally be 3 top 10 players this year. So, interesting detail for me is, let's just quickly look at some stats for kyousuke, because those do pop off the fucking screen in a way very few others. So this is on land this year. He's played 2 lands. Like, that's impossible, that KPR. It's just actually impossible. Deaths look are reasonably high, because obviously he plays more entry style, doesn't he? Crazy impact, firepower's 100, entering 97, opening 93. It's just nuts. Trading's good. 20 maps played. Obviously he's not playing anyone you know. But let's look at the 2 events. And this is where we'll get a more interesting angle. Because what we'll do is this. We will look at the 2 lands. So this is with like a mixed team or something, is it? No, this is with the real team. Okay. Wait 1 second. Yes. So he had 2 lands, played 10 maps at each. Right, and one of them, he had insane stats, and one he had very good stats. In the one he had very good stats, he was not actually as good on T side, but on CT side, he was just the best player. Pretty much. Opening kills on this one, he did actually just get used in a very abusive manner, or chose to do it himself. That is fucking bonkers. Like you have to be Donk to even have no close, and it's still very good success rate. You go look at the other one, though. T side is unbelievable. This is impossible. Sure, the whole team's shitting on everyone. CT side also just nuts. On the T side, way less T side usage. Not even the one with the most, but extremely good. Exceptional numbers. So certainly this is a player. Now, admittedly, you're not playing teams you know. Gun 5 against Paravision. That's not the end of the world, Paravision. Oh, it's the real Paravision. Okay. So let's talk a bit about his skills. Now, first of all, I'm actually going to shout out a smaller content creator. There's a guy called Vision CS from Australia. That's right. I actually, just for the sake of mentioning that, even looked up what the difference between the flags is. There's like an extra star down there and a little extra star between the far on the side or whatever on the Australian one, where it's claimed they copied it from New Zealand. Whatever. We spawned y'all anyway. You're welcome to stay in the Commonwealth. You're our brothers. He actually did a video that was about how kyousuke peaks people on T-side. Because what's interesting is it's like he's developed his own tech a la Maui's donk slide. So he doesn't really do the donk slide. What he does is basically every peak, he always has a really good crosshair placement. And then what he does is he does sort of a slow, wider peak. That's just one motion. He doesn't jiggle. He doesn't like slide in and then do the last second. What he does is he will actually use little techniques, but part of it is like, it's really, really good if you look. If anyone plays off angles, he's going to go past them first, and then he's going to have a time to like correct his crosshair, and he's got very nice smooth aim as well, by the way. I actually think people like Donk are a little bit more snappy. I do think his style is interesting because he almost has his own style. He does sort of this tap crouch approach, both the spray in between the AD, but also even between fights to like reset the movement really quickly and throw the enemy off. So that, like, for example, sometimes he will slide in and then tap up so that they quickly adjust down and then they don't hit him in the head and he shoots them in the head. It's kind of like his version of the Donk slide. So interesting already that another player who's 17 has put in mad hours, looks really crispy, and then he's got his own like bizarre peaking tech. Because by the way, no one's emulated that donk slide in the same way Donk has. That's like going to be some Kareem Abdul-Jabbar skyhook shit. No one can really do it like he can. You can mimic it a little bit like Magic with the junior hook, but it won't look like the skyhook. And spoiler, just like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was like over 7 feet tall, you aren't going to be Donk even if you do the donk slide, are you? Now his aim is very good. That might even be underrating it. It's just that I do think there are better aimers in the game. I think it's kind of like Nico level aim. Now, it's not Donk level. I do think he is more comparable to an Exertion, to an Axile, bit streaky with if he gets the headshot. He isn't like Donk where you get the headshot off either the first bullet or the spray anyway. I don't think he does the insta headshot as much except with pistols, and he actually relies a lot more on spray. As in, he doesn't get the insta-kill as much for me. I mean, he's playing against lesser opponents. I'm talking about Donk against the best as well. I'm not even talking about Donk in Academy or whatever. Now, his moving spray with the M4A1 is fucking nuts. He's got that really interesting moving style where he's standing up too. Generally, he just has very good spray. I mean, there's a reason why you'll sometimes see this guy go all the way down to a full auto spray from like mid-T Mirage into the window area or short. Like, he's one of those people who can just rely he'll actually still get the kill, which is nuts considering he has good aim. And he has a fucking dope deagle. A really good deagle. Like, I can't wait to see this guy play alongside Nico and fucking Monacy, and let's get some low buys going on. Let's get some forces with deagles going on. Let's just fucking cap these motherfuckers. Even Vitality doesn't do like 4 or 5 deagles that often. So I think the interesting thing for me is the Falcons side of it. First of all, they didn't actually have to make this change. I think their major run is over-scrutinised. They had 2 finals before that, and then they lost, 1 semi, and they looked, quite frankly, like, I don't care what the rankings say, they were going to be the second best team with that roster if they kept it together. I think people just went way, way overboard with what happened at the major. Even Mouse and Vitality had their BO1 slip-ups in their own way, even if they course-corrected. So I think, actually, people taking that like it's the be-all, end-all. Fuck off. We have the rest of the scene. It's just nonsense. You just hate the org. Just admit it. These players don't suck. There's a very good roster. Now, I will say, I thought of all the players on the team, the one you should cut in terms of talent is Magisk. But that's if I'm getting bit coming through the door. By the way, he isn't playing awesome, but maybe he would in this team. And obviously, he's Monacy's mate, etc. So theoretically, this is a great signing. It's just a weird signing for this roster makeup, is that. Like, if you're going to replace Magisk, you want to go more for like an anchor and sort of a lurky player, right? If you were going to replace someone with kyousuke, it'd be Tessus, right? That seems like the obvious fit there. And if anything, he actually plays a bit more like Nico than Tessus, quite frankly. Now, with that said, yes, he's very expensive, but you've got the infinite money glitch, haven't you? If he becomes a top 20 player this year, I think it was worth it already. Because he does have a tremendous potential, I have to say. I actually, look, you can exaggerate that too much, but it should be mentioned he does have tremendous potential. If he doesn't make it in this team, he's going to be in some Russian team and be really fucking sick. As I just alluded to, I do think the role part's very interesting. Because for me, Nico isn't a pure entry. His style more is like the follow-up playmaker role, and you want him to be able to sometimes go in early, but you also want him to be back. Look, when he had Malbs, he maybe might go in first sometimes. But with Tessus, you more want Tessus going in first. I thought it was really weird when they had Dexter, they were making Tessus the sort of mid-round player, because Nico's too impactful in the mid-round. He's probably the best mid-round rifler ever in CS. You'd have to go back to like Neo before this. I even think Cold Zero, because he doesn't have the same skill level, wouldn't even count as much, even though he was definitely very consistent in playoff matches. The key thing here that's interesting is Nico, I know, can lurk and be a semi-lurk. He's done it in his career. He's been exceptional at that role too, I think. The problem is, why does it feel like it's going to be Tessus and then Tessus kicked out the team when he isn't as good at another role like being a lurker? The problem is Nico could still be insane as a look, but he's just too impactful in the current role he did. Ever since 2021 onwards in G2, he has mastered this role in a way no one has. And he doesn't have the raw opening firepower of Donk, but he has an amazing ability early and in the mid game. And obviously he's a pretty fucking good clutch player if he ends up in it too, as Donk almost never is in the clutch, is he? And remember, it's implied in all these teams, he is sort of short circuit in the IGL. He calls the shit that makes sense to him because he's a genius. He can read the defense like we can't, and he does make sick mid-round calls. It's why I reckon eventually he just will be the IGL of Falcons or a future team. It just seems too obvious at this point in time. In that sense, I guess Hunter is the mini Nico, isn't he? Now, I do think, as I say, there's more of an overlap with Nico, if anything, traditional style and how they're using him in Spirit Academy, than with Tessus. Because I think, if anything, Malbs was sort of sometimes the Tessus, like press W, and then Nico can follow up and get all the kills with all the information after they've been damaged, right? And right, frankly, Malbs is the guy who just headshots you instantly, isn't he? I do actually hope they just play around his strengths, though. Whatever it means for Tessus or the others, if you're going to spend this much money, look, you don't want to fuck up Nico's position, but you want to play to this guy's strengths. Maybe there's a map that Nico's not as good in that role and you put him on this one or something, because I think it's inevitable. If this roster isn't sick, which, by the way, it has a chance to be, number one, then Tessus is going to get replaced, isn't he? And so if he's replaced by a Bit or a Yimpat, yeah, then at that point in time, you don't want kyousuke to then be changing roles again. You want to have bedded him in at tier 1 because he's going to be a lot of pressure. He could be in a final in his first 1 or 2 events with a chance to win, play the best teams in the world. You need to give this guy a proper grounding and don't do what NIP and Astralis and those other teams did, Na'Vi themselves, where they cynically cycled the academy players and then fucked all their positions up. So we never knew that actually NPL was good. We never knew fucking Headtrick had skills. No one knew LNZ had any capabilities. ETR looked like a bomb and they kicked him out. Like, I'm so sick of those fucking teams wasting their talents and then bragging about their academy system later when the players actually used properly in another fucking team. So I do think Kicksan's calling style should work. This guy clearly is quite proactive himself. It doesn't like he just needs the IGL to tell him what to do. And Nico's the fucking crypto IGL, isn't he? No, you know what. He already had Tessus. He had Nertz, who's a guy who fucking loves to press a W. So I think he's already worked with some pretty good fucking aggressive riflers. The key for me here is Zonic, because presumably he's making the call to bring this player in. And for Magus, his boy, quite frankly. So now this guy's cut Dupree and Magus. Hey, tell you what, look, you're getting points off you for bringing Dupree back and wasting fucking half a year. But I'll give you props for actually killing your darlings early when you need to, instead of just letting the team fade away because you just demand they keep getting a salary because they won some trophies as like supportive elements. So to me, the problem here is this. This is a big gamble because either they'll just be like 3rd or 4th best team and they won't win anything, except the PGL if they go there, or they'll actually be clear number 2 or even be the best team and beat Vitality. And the reason I mention that is, if that happens, Zonic probably has to reformulate what we think of as Counter-Strike T-sides. Because I think this gamble is the hard opposite of last year's Falcons, where you had this like team player core with just enough firepower, and then once you lost Boros and didn't get Nico, you didn't have enough firepower. And Sumpaius wasn't as strong because the AWP wasn't as strong and impactful unless Yoziwu and Monacy. And so as a result, I do think you actually lacked firepower to even get any of that shit working, and you didn't have as much of an up-tempo game that worked really. So I think this time you've gone the opposite way. You've got tons of skill and loads of aggro T players and early round players. You've got 3. You've got kyousuke, Nico, and Tessus in one team. And by the way, Monacy's an aggressive AWPer too. And Kicksan's an up-tempo IGL. So I think at this point in time, you're trying to say T-side really is firepower and entry players. That's what the game is now. Well, I'll tell you right now, all the pressure and all the abuse that's gone on Zonic, if this works, he will be hailed as a genius and immediately earn back his reputation by, again, reformulating what Counter-Strike is. If you don't know, when Astralis took over, the mentality before, hence why FaZe Clan brought in Olafmeister and Guardian, was the game from the NIPs and the Fanatics and LDLC Envious is about skill, where you have like aggressive, like floaty T-sides where people just play off individual players and default into stars make players, and then clutch players figure out what to do in the mid to late, and then they just win rounds, and you call simple strats. It's not super anti-stratty, it's not super like tactics out of spawn, mid-rounding a bit, yeah, the Carrigans of the world. I think what Zonic did is reformulate the game completely, and then the joke is he even tricked Team Liquid for a solid year into trying to copy him and be all tactical. And I think if you have a look at the teams that beat them, it would be a Na'Vi of raw firepower. It would be some bullshit Fallen. Like, let's get some crazy, like, clutches out. Let's get, like, a Cold Zera getting some big clutch round wins. It would be some shit like, who else? Evil Geniuses. with the up-tempo mid-rounding style again to throw off the defence and some fucking strong players in Cirque and Breeze, and Ethan wasn't exactly a slouch himself with that first bullet. So I think Zonic tricked everyone before, finessed them all. I don't count Vitality as some revolutionary aspect, except for the fact he won a major with an international roster. Before Carrigan, by the way. And then now you're going to have to reformulate for a new game, CS2. But if you do it, you'll be hailed as a genius. And if you don't, you hit the infinite money glitch and you go and get that lurker, don't you? You go get that anchor player and you bring them in and you kick out Tessus probably. It's unlikely you're going to bench kyousuke unless something really bad happens. Now, the comparison with Donk is what everyone wants to know. It's too much. Could he be the closest thing for a Russian player to Donk? It's not impossible. The problem is, he isn't Donk. There'll never be another Donk. There never should have been a Donk. Donk is even more aggro. Donk never met a fucking duel he didn't want to fight. He'll fight two people at once. This guy's fucking nuts. Donk has that feeling on T-side that like Aaron Donald and Khalil Mack did as edge rushers in the NFL, where it's like, you better send two people to block them. They'll probably still lose. And then the quarterback still better have fucking eyes in the back of his head for when they're coming round. Like, you can't even, just because you have a crossfire or a two-man peek onto Donk, doesn't matter. He'll body you. His spray's too good. His aim's too good. He's got impossible confidence. This guy isn't like that. I even think if they really want to, if you want to make him adapt, he could be a semi-lurk or an aggro lurk. He could do a bit of that. Not a hard lurk, I don't think. Donk's spray is even better, by the way. That's how nuts Donk is. He's probably got better first bullet and better spray. The problem is I've only seen kyousuke against the tier 2, so I can't really judge that totally. He is very good, but he's also very young. He's also 17. And he so far has only done it against tier 2 on bullshit lands or on Face It. He's done some great kills on Face It. The problem here is people are already going to go, oh my God, he's to be 17, be that good. Look, Donk's exceptional because the way he did his 17-year-old. We've had other players that were 16, 17. We had Element, Volcano, Narsu. They all did it in 1.6 of 16, 17-year-olds. We had Kenny S. He was 17, I think, when CS2 began. He was in very games when he would have been 16, I think. These guys were doing it on LAN, the biggest LANs, and against the world's best players. Now, admittedly, Donk on LAN means literally the World Championship. You could have the World Championship for Element. The problem is, it was in a hotel fucking ballroom basement. It wasn't in fucking a massive stadium like Katowice with all fans there cheering, in his case, maybe against him even, because he there from Poland, think it through. Now, for Falcons, I'm amazed how many people have tried to naysay this move. I think he'll be very good. I think Falcons will be... I don't know if they'll actually be better overall, but I think they can be better. In fact, if I had to bet, I'd slightly say I do edge that they'll be better. The role balance throws me off a little bit. I think that's going to take time to cook. When I say time, I mean at one or two events at least. But this could be such an exceptional change to the T side. I do think there's a world where this is fucking nuts. Like, I can already imagine maps like Ancient, Dust 2, Mirage. Oh, they could be so fucking crispy on those T sides. And then good luck having Monacy peek out and trade you if you get the kill on this guy, by the way. The real question I have at the end of the video is this. Why aren't the other teams that think of themselves or portray themselves as we're big teams in history who spend money and buy talents? Why does a G2 not consider this move? Why does a FaZe Clan... Imagine if he was going to one of those teams and you were going to build the team around him in his role, which might be a Donk or an Eco-esque, well, more of an Eco-esque role. Imagine how good they could be. Now, sure, yeah, it's millions. Mate, it's fucking a lot of money. It's 700k for Jambo. Like, what do you want? Like, you have to spend money to win in this game. It's just the case. Spirit didn't because they kept Donk. You don't have a Donk. You don't have a Donk. So at this point in time, yeah, you have to spend to win. So I think what these teams are doing is bullshit. And these teams will just lag behind Falcons as well as Spirit and the other squads. You know, I'm always rep my set, and the people who've got my back are the following people who support my videos. Matt Pugnatio Rajcula, Jasun, Jensen Goh, Tosh, Torin, and you know the all-time ride or die, Jerky's minion, isn't it? Special thanks to him. Do you want to suggest a topic or a guest for my content? Want to find out who the upcoming interview subjects are? Do you want to take part in one of those long discussions with me where you set the topics? Maybe you want to ask me a question for my video AMA? Well, all of those perks and more are available where? At the Patreon link in the description box below. So put your money where your mouth is and join the Scroominati today. You dig?